In this video, we will be implementing Vue3 along with Laravel 8 to create a dynamic data table component. So let's get started. So we will be using Vue3 along with Bootstrap. So for that purpose, I need to install one package from Laravel, that is Laravel UI. First of all, let's install the package. So that can be done by composer require Laravel /UI. So this is one of the awesome package. So let's see, this package has been installed automatically. So PHP artisan UI, and since we want to make the use of the bootstrap, we will be using this command php artisan UI bootstrap. So what does this command do is that it simply adds the bootstrap scaffolding to our application. So for this purpose, the next thing that we need to do is to run all the dependencies by running command npm install. So this is just for scaffolding the bootstrap. We could also scaffold Vue with this package, but we are not interested in the older version of the Vue, rather than we want the latest version of the Vue. So for that purpose, we need to make some changes, and we will be doing it manually. So for that purpose, let's add some packages like npm I, which is the shortcut for the npm install. We want the latest version of the Vue, that can be done by Vue@next. So the next thing that we want is Laravel mix, which is also the next. We want for the latest version. Similarly, we want the Vue compiler -sfc for compiling the Vue, and also we want the Vue loader for the webpack, so which also needs to be the latest version. So this will take a little amount of time for the installation, but we can just wait and watch. So this is comparatively a better way. So instead of using Laravel UI, so we are installing the dependencies manually. So let's see what are we provided. So with this, our package.json will be updated, where the dev dependencies are added, like the Vue compiler sfc that we added, and the Laravel mix. So this is trying to install 6.0.0 and beta.17. Similarly, it's trying to install Vue 3.0.5, and for the Vue loader, it's installing so greater than 1.1.2. So apart from this, we can see that Axios is being installed, is one of our dependencies. Similarly, Bootstrap, Cross-env, jQuery, Lodash, and the Popper.js. So let's keep these things as they are for now. So within this file, you can see that there are the different commands which will be used for the assets compilation. So after the dependencies are being installed, so let them be installed at the moment. So till then, we can make some further changes. So what are the further changes that we want to do is that within this webpack.mix.js, you can see that the file which is located under the resources.js and app.js, so it will be compiled to the folder public/js. So similarly, we are compiling app.scss within this directory to be compiled as app.css. So instead of being source maps, since we are compiling the assets for the views, so let's simply add a tag of Vue over there, and then let's try to format this code. Okay, it was better. Okay, so next, what we want to make some other changes is that within this app.js file, so it's simply requiring the bootstrap file, so which is simply like it is requiring the Lodash, and it's requiring the Popper.js, which is one of the mandatory tool when working with the bootstrap. So we will not make any changes in this file, but within this app.js we want to make some further changes, so which will be useful for us. So first of all, let's import create app from Vue. So currently Vue is being installed, Vue and other dependencies are being installed, and let's say that we want to call this function create app, so where we will be mounting our application within this ID, within this div with the ID of the app. So over here we do have some options, like we could pass some particular component like app or something like that, but we are not dealing with the single page applications, rather than we are working with Laravel, where we want to take the advantage of the advantage of the blade, as well as we want to take the advantage of the Vue. So in that case, so we'll define the different components, like so we can define the different components over here. So for now, so let's create one component like app component. So let's see. So we will create one component within this JS. Let's create a directory called components, and inside this we can we can just create a new file, something like this, app.vue. So where we can say welcome to my apps. So this is very easy, so we just want to make sure that everything is working fine. So let's just import this app by simply import app from the components / app. So this is importing this this component from this component / app folder. So as you can see that we have created so this is the new way how the Vue3 works. So we need to pass either we can pass the root component, but we are not interested in the single page application for now. We are working with Vue and Blade, so that we can define the different components that we have. So for now, let's make this as app. So, and the next thing, so since we used Laravel UI, so we need to make sure that we want to have this auth as well. So for that, what we can do is php artisan UI auth, that is the command. So as you can see that all the dependencies are installed as well. So php artisan UI, and we want something like auth. So this does not exist, so let's see. So what do we want is, we want php artisan UI auth. So php artisan UI auth. So the reason for this the reason why we are generating the auth, though we will not be dealing with the auth in this application, is that because we want to make sure that Bootstrap because Bootstrap already provides a good layout to us, so instead of wasting time on the design and the front end part, so we can simply copy those things and we can get started. So as you can see, since I already had generated all of these files, so upon hitting this command, the application asked me whether you want to replace it or not. So I chose to replace all of those things, so that you can also get started with me. So what does this do is that this simply creates a auth folder to us within the Vue's directory, see where we can get the different blade or the different files for the registration, verification and the login. So let's skip these things for now. So we are mainly interested on this layouts folder. So as you can see that this is the basic Laravel's default layout provided to us. So it's Blade's default layout. So it is simply getting the compiled app.js from this public / JS folder, and also it's getting the style like app.css. So apart from this, it has added the basic Bootstrap navbar. so you can see on your device as well. So we'll not make any change onto this. So you can see that the content we are yielding a section for the content, so we'll be using this in this another blades, so that we can easily extend this main layout file and implement it. So within this home.blade.php, you can see that this is the another file which we will be using as our main blade file instead of welcome.blade.php, which I have removed. So within this div class container is provided. So let's say we'll pass an ID of app so that we can render the component over here. So within this card body section, let's remove all of the contents. So instead of this, we will be rendering our example component, not the example component, rather than we'll be rendering our data table component which we are working on this video. So we have already installed all the dependencies. Now let's run the command npm run watch, so that the watch so that we can watch for the assets, and as soon as we make on the any changes on our assets folder within the resources JS, so it will be automatically compiled, so we no longer need to come back and run the command npm run dev. So this is what we get. So I missed something, so let's share this to you. So within route/web.php, I removed the code, and for when the URL is when the user hits the default URL, so he will be rendered this home.blade.php. So these are the other routes that was generated by the PHP artisan UI auth command. So let's skip all of those things for now, because we are not interested in any of these things for now. So let's remove all of these things. So this is what we want. So you can see that this is very beautiful layout that Laravel provided to us, and it made our task easier. So the next thing, let's close all of these things. So now within this home.blade.php, and let's play with only two files for the moment. So those are not this one. I want to get this resources.js app.js. So you can see that I am interested in only these two files. So I want to render this app component within my app. So you can see that I have already mentioned that this is my root div element. So within here, let's provide this tag, so which simply says please render my application, please render this component. So you can see that it's displaying welcome to my app. So how this is working is because within this app.view we have simply said welcome to my app. So this is what we had provided. So you can see that this is working perfectly fine. So now let's remove this file which was just for the demo purpose. So now let's work on with the main task. So let's create a new component called DataTable component. So PHP Storm is intelligent enough to generate these things to us. So you can see that this is a data table component. So we can pass a div over here, and let's go to the Bootstrap's website, and then simply let's copy a good layout to us so that we can get a good looking data table, and within that data table we'll make some other changes, and we'll be going through my article as well. So so we'll be going back and forth, but this is not being loaded. Okay, I think the first one, this simply this first table looks beautiful. So simply let's copy this field, and within the template let's paste it and let's format the code so that I have done nothing else. I just simply copied the code from that place and then I paste it over here. So the name of the component is DataTable, and then let's render it. So as you can see that it's trying to copy, or it's trying to import the app which does not exist. Instead we want something like DataTable component which can be easily imported from this directory. So this DataTable component belongs to this directory, resources.js components dash DataTable. So let's go back to my application and let's try to render. So you can see that it's failing. So the reason why it fails is that we have not provided, we have not mentioned that we want to make use of this data table over here. So simply now instead of app, let's use the data table. Let's see that it's working. Okay, it's very beautiful, and let's make some changes. Instead of dashboard, let's throw this away, and let's say as we are fetching the users data, let's say users. So you can see that it's trying to say so users. So now let's move on. Now let's work on the data table components. So this is how this works. This is the data table component. We need to pass some props to it so that we can work based upon it. So for now, the first thing that we need is we want to get a URL. So why do we need the URL? Because we need some mechanism so that our front-end application, or basically this data table Vue component, talks to the backend API and then requests for the paginated users, and based upon this request our API will return back an API to us. So how can that be achieved? So that can be achieved easily. So for that purpose, let's continue. So we want to get some props. So what is the first prop? So first prop is URL, and then what does this URL field? This is URL. So let's specify the type of the prop as well. So it needs to be string, I guess. If it does not work, we'll make some changes. Otherwise let's say required is true. So there are the two things. So let's see if this is being compiled. Okay, it seems that it's being compiled. Let's inspect. Let's open the console just to be sure that if something does not work. So you can see that so we are missing one prop. So we are missing one props, which is URL. So let's work on this. Let's pass these props. So how can this be passed? So it can be passed simply as URL, and then let's make the use of Laravel's route function. But for this we need to make some changes on our route/api.php, because we already have provided that we already have defined a route over here for the API/users, but when working with the Blade and Laravel, we can add something like name to it. So let's simply name it users, so that we can pass a name, so which can be called from the application simply as route api.users, so which will eventually call the API/users. So this is one of the easier way and also a safe way when working with Laravel and Vue. So first of all, I want to check the list of the routes, which can be done using a command php artisan route list. So as you can see, the route is specified over here. So the route what we have is API/users, and then the name of this route is users, but we want to make it something like API.users. So let's check it again. You can see the name is API.users, and the action that this route will call is app HTTP controllers users controller, and it will hit the index method where the API middleware is being applied. So for now I can again npm run watch. I can again watch for the assets compilation, and as you can see that the name is API/users. So within this home.blade.php, what can I do is I can pass this API.users. So this is working very fine. So this extension, Laravel extension within PHP Storm is so good. Okay, now within this data table view, we can see that we have already passed this data. So within here, let's try to let's try to write down, or let's try to see what is the value of the URL that the user has provided to us. Okay, it's completely failing. So the template compilation error parsing JavaScript expression unexpected colon, so it is not accepting this. So is that because of this? So let's try. The assets must have been compiled, so you can see that it's working fine. So this is what we wanted to provide. Instead of showing the static data, we will now fetch the data from the database and then display it. And also let's instead of showing these static fields, let's make it dynamic. So for this purpose, let's add a new props over here. So the new props that we want is something like columns, and then the type will be array, and then it is also required. So simply we can take this to the upper line so that we can save the space. So let's open our inspector and let's see if this works fine. So as you can see that it's warning us that columns prop is missing. So for that purpose, let's go to our file into this place where we are working on it. So let's split this into multiple lines so that it becomes easier for us to work. So we want to pass columns as a props, and then we can simply pass the array. So why do we want this? The reason is that, so this is our URL, this is our API. So let's say there are 4 fields which is returned by our API, but the consumer or the web application needs only 2 or 3 fields in the table. So in that case, we need to make sure that our data table component accepts this condition or requirement as well, so that only the fields which are needed for the data table are sent to the in the front end. So for that purpose, let's we have added these new props called columns. So in our case, for the initial period, let's say we just want 2 fields, name and the email. So this is passed, and when this is passed, what we can do is when the component is created, we can simply try to log this dot columns. So let's hope that it works. So as you can see that there are 2 fields passed over here. So this is easily handled. So over here now, instead of showing this, manually, instead of writing this static code, we can just add a v-for so that we can loop through the provided array, and then v for column in columns. So just with that, what can be done is simply no, we just want a single row, but this field, this needs to be uh, multiple, so column. So that can be done, and this can be checked. So as you can see, the two fields are passed, so only the two uh, column heads are shown over here. So what can be done is we can add something like there must be something like two uppercase first, something like that. Uppercase first, is there some, okay, two uppercase, this will be better. Okay, since this is an string, let's assume that this works. Okay, it's working fine. So instead of showing this, let's remove this, and then let's pass few other fields like name, email. So the next field that we want is address, and the next one is created_at. So let's see. So we have added this custom field, and I want to make some changes into the column head so that it looks better. So the head dash dark, this is the default. Okay, this is the class, utility class provided by Bootstrap. So as you can see that now we do have name, email, address, and created at. So for this we are getting underscore over here, so we can get rid of that as well. So that can be done simply by replacing the underscore by empty line. So we will work with reusable functions for this, but for now let's make it simple. So Vue3 does not support the filters, I guess. So in that case we'll have to we'll have to check something else. So instead of space, this needs to be an space, so that we can see these are the fields that we want. So now the next thing what we want to achieve is we want to get this data from our API rather than showing this static data. So for this let's remove all of these two lines, even this row can be deleted. So for this what we need is we need to prepare data. So data in a Vue single file component is a function which simply returns an object. So for that purpose, let's add or declare a variable with the name of the table data, which is empty for now. So we will loop through this table data, and based upon this data we will display the values to the user. So we can add a created method over here. So within this created, when the component gets created, so during this time we can simply fetch, we can using Axios we can call to our API and fetch the data. So let's work onto that as well. So over here, so let's add a tr, which means a table row. So v if the table length, the count is equal to 0, in that case we can say no records found. Let's check. Okay, it is not showing anything. So the reason for this is table data.count. So let's see what does this return to us. Okay, it is not returning anything. What is the reason? Table data dot length, table data dot not, it's not count. Since I'm coming from the PHP background, I always remember the functions from PHP, but this is the JavaScript function. As you can see that no records are found. So okay, for now it's okay, but we need to take this to the center as well, so we'll work on it after some time. So let this be how it is. So now when this component is created, or basically we can add it within the component mounted as well, but for now let's keep it under the section of the created. So we need to call a function like let's say fetch data, something like that. So fetch data is the function that will be called as soon as this component is created. So when the component is created, we'll simply call this function. So let's see that this is working. So I will say hello, I am calling API, and then let's save this and let's try. So as you can see that the component is created and the function is being called. So for now there are no records, so no records is found. So in that case, okay, now let's move on. So for calling or fetching the API, we need a library called Axios, or we could use any other libraries like fetch, or even if we wanted we could use jQuery's Ajax function as well. But Axios is really popular these days, and I am in love with this package rather than other packages, so we'll work with this. So there are two different ways that we can work with Axios. So we could simply import Axios on the top like this, import Axios from Axios. That could have been done, but what we can see that within our app.js file we already have required the bootstrap, where we can see that Axios has already been imported. So and it's defined under the window variable, so we should not be worried about this. So for this we can make it something like, I would brief okay, we can simply now we can simply try to Axios dot, since we are trying to get the data from the get method, so we can simply try to get for this props or the property that is passed to our component. So we can simply get this URL, and then it does return a data to us. So in that we are destructuring using the ES6 function. So when the data is passed, we will simply console and log the data which is being passed to us. So I am formatting the code as well. So now as you can see that when the component is created, an API call has been done to this particular URL, and then the response is returned, and then we already have logged this data over here. So as you can see that there are 10 data. Now we can see that we have been able to fetch the data, and now instead of showing something like this, let's add and let's assign a data to our variable so that it can be displayed to the user. So for this, what can be done is, instead of consoling the data, we can simply assign the this dot table data is equal to data, because our response is, this is the data what we are getting, and the values are stored within the data. So we can just assign this, and in case of error we can have something like this. We'll not do anything for now. Let's not do anything, let's just keep what it is. So you can see that this table data, the values are reassigned, and the table data will be updated if the data fetching is successful. You can see that the no records found, that message has been hidden. So for this, let's play through the data. So this can be done simply by before for data in table data. So within this column, within this row, we need to add a column. So for this column also, as you can see that we are looping over this data, and we are trying to get this particular object. So for this as well, we need to loop through these fields and then display as columns. so that is also easily accessible. So how can that be done? That can be done by Vue4, let's say value in data. This is the data, so that can be named as simply value. So since okay, let's check this again. As you can see that the data has been successfully fetched, so the name is there, and then the email is there, and the address and the created ad fields are provided to us. So this is simple thing that we simply implemented. So how we implement it? We simply created a data table component. So this component is simply accepting the two props URL and the columns. The first one is used to fetch the data using the third-party library like Axios for the HTTP request, and the second field, so that is used to specify the columns that we require. So this is what we have achieved in this video. So in the upcoming video we have something more to achieve, the things like the pagination. As you can see that currently we are being able to get the 10 data because the API is handling the pagination to us. And in the next video we want to implement different things like sorting. Let's say I want to sort by clicking on this field, so the name should be displayed in the ascending or the descending order. And also we want to add a search text box over here, so where the user can specify the search query, and based upon the query the data will be filtered. And over here we will add two fields. Over here there will be something like choose how many data you want to choose or you want to display, like 10, 20, 50, 100. And over here we want to show the pagination. So that will be our next milestone. So I will be updating the next video, and I will make sure that you will be able to get it. So for that purpose you can simply subscribe to my channel. So thank you for your time everyone. See you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.